I couldn't find a video on YouTube specific to my vehicle for replacing and checking the function of the EGR valve. So I tried to piece together some checks from the sites that I found that were for other vehicles, earlier makes or later makes, or V6s or V8s, and cars and pickup trucks, and but nothing was this particular configuration with this 4.6 liter V8. And they all went through the same process of telling you, well, you know, it could be this sensor or this other sensor. All the two sensors that are part of the electronic systems are apparently mounted onto this EGR valve. You can't get it's a closed valve. You can't get your finger up underneath it to check the function of it that way. It's got 6 wires going to the darn thing, so I think all the sensors are on top of it. Pulled this cap off to try to actuate it, like by closing my finger over this orifice on the end of the cap to actuate the EGR valve. That didn't work. May have been because the EGR valve itself was bad and stuck closed. I don't know. And of course they went through the process of saying, well, it could be these small ports and these 90-degree orifices that the exhaust gases are recirculated back into the engine through. And turns out when I bought an EGR valve because I couldn't test anything, but I knew I was going to pull it off, and I thought I'd at least try to get some carburetor cleaner and spray in there and maybe clean out the orifices through the open port. I did that on a Isuzu one time, worked just fine. Isuzu had the 90-degree turn, small orifice that was where the exhaust gases actually entered the plenum or the manifold, and that worked fine on that Isuzu. But this one here has the single, about a 3/4 inch hole that goes right into the air intake here, the throttle body, if you will. And there's no small passages. The thing goes right into this throttle body with a pipe as big as my index finger. The pipe that brings gases up from the exhaust is right back here, and it's as big as your index finger too. So there's the hole that carries gases through the EGR valve and into the plenum or the air intake here is 3/4 inch in diameter, as big as your finger. So there's no clogging of any ports. Thanks to Ford for eliminating that stuff. I mean, I stuck a screwdriver, a 6-inch long screwdriver, all the way through the hole with no obstructions. It's a big cavity in there. So there's no obstruction, no buildup of carbon that obstructs the EGR flow. So the only thing in my case has to be that the EGR valve wasn't opening, because the computer just gives you one code for anything that goes wrong. It just says insufficient flow, P0401, insufficient flow, and doesn't tell you why. Could be because this sensor's bad, could be because that sensor's bad. Any of them are an indication that this one here, I think, is what opens up the EGR valve, and we're using, because it has the vacuum lines going to it. This one here is the one that checks for the cross flow into the from the exhaust gases, whether there's a pressure differential, and it probably does it through this tube right here, which goes from one side and into this device here. Any rate, I put it on. I'm pretty confident that my check engine light will go off now, because the most common thing is the clogging of those small ports, and there aren't any small ports in here.